This is going to be a rather overdue video response to Stephen's video about dyslexia. Now, I am not going to talk about dyslexia in this video because I think Stephen pretty much, as eloquently as I've ever heard it, summed up what it is like to be dyslexic. What I'm going to talk about today is dyspraxia, which is something that I suffer from. Now, whereas dyslexia affects people more on a mental cognition level, dyspraxia is more on a practical, physical level, even though it is still very much based in the brain. One of the first signs of dyspraxia, I'm told, is difficulty when learning to speak. Now, I don't know what the average age for one's first words are, but it was getting very close to my second birthday before I said anything, and there were certain doctors at the time who were starting to get a little bit concerned, but in the space of almost a week I went from nothing to sentences. Maybe I could all along, I just didn't have anything to say. One of the things that has stayed with me, unfortunately, for the whole of my life is a difficulty with spatial awareness. Now, it's difficult to try and explain this to you, but roll with me. I know from memory that behind me is the end of my bed and a wall. Okay? I've been in this room very many times. I know. I could walk around it blindfolded, probably. But at this moment, I can't tell you if that wall is a metre, 5 metres away, or there, because I have absolutely no perception of it. Anyone who's ever walked down the street with me will probably be able to attest to the fact that sometimes I do, totally unintentionally, just bang into them because I don't walk in a straight line, because I've no real way of gauging how close or far away from me they are. And if I were to walk down the street whilst texting, I'd probably be arrested for being drunk and disorderly, because I will weave like that all over the place, because I can't orient it myself if I'm not looking exactly where I'm going. In fact, I remember once me and my dad were having a Skype conversation with Meg as she wandered round the supermarket texting on her phone, and we were both saying that if we tried that, we'd probably be crashing into the aisles, bumping into people, upsetting all of the displays, just because we couldn't orient ourselves whilst texting on a phone. We couldn't do it. It is for this reason that I'm probably never ever going to be able to master juggling. I mean, for example, it took me literally years of practice to be able to do something as simple as this, which most people do instinctively. Also, another one that I thought about fairly recently is this. Fairly innocuous, but I wonder how many people are like me in that if I were to be asked to point to my index finger right now, that I'd end up doing that. It's quite literally cross-wired. And like there's a point on my finger that I'm trying to search for here now, but I can't find it because there's no connection between my brain and what I'm seeing and what my fingers are feeling. But the second I pull it apart, that was the point I was looking for. Another thing that feeds into is timing and balance, and it is at this point that I am really going to try my utmost not to turn this into a rant about how much I hate dancing. The first part is keeping a beat in my head, and that can be a very simple one, just like... And you'll notice that this is fairly simple, but it takes a great deal of my mental resources in order to keep it going. You'll notice that my speech has become rather fragmented because I'm having to concentrate very hard on keeping this regular. And if I get distracted by anything, it's going to go off. Now, that's what I have whenever I listen to music. I can keep the beat in my head, but actually orientating myself to do something with it, see, it's already gone, totally. I can't think of a way of articulating that, other than the way I've just shown you. I find dancing and dance lessons embarrassing, humiliating, and pointless, because I can never make my body do what in my head I want it to do. I can't physically articulate it well enough to do what I want it to do. And if I can't do that, I get no enjoyment from it. It's very hard to do this without doing a sort of wobbly gymnast thing. I've got ways of dealing with it, like basically just staring off into the middle distance over there, but I can't do it with any degree of ease or relaxation. I'm tense from the waist down at the moment. As part of the audition process at Signet, we had to do an exercise which is pretty much the epitome of a dyspraxic's nightmare. It started off by just going through a simple sequence with us, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's not so difficult. But then they say, right, one arm is one step in front of the other. So it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, still a bit too easy for them. So then they combine it with movement, with walking. So we do the sequence twice through with feet. And if you imagine that I'm in a circle with several other people, one person in front, one person behind, that should know what they're doing, it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. But even that's too easy. So they say, right, now combine this movement with the Shakespearean text that you prepared for your audition. So it kind of, for me, became, okay, thus with imagined wing, hour, swift, scene, etc. Let me try and break down to you what is having to go through my mind in order to get that sequence even half presentable. I'm having to think, where is one arm in relation to the other arm? I'm also having to think, where are my arms in relation to my feet? So, where is one arm to the other arm relative to where is one arm in relation to the feet? And you're probably seeing even now that the sequence is becoming a bit sloppy because I'm having to think about it. Because I have to think about it, otherwise I can't do any of it. But also now I'm having to think, okay, whereas one arm in relation to my feet, what number are we on, where does that mean I am in the sequence, and also, what is the text of my Shakespearean piece? So I'm having to think, okay, thus, with imagined, wing. So what am I doing now? It's like I have to hold all of these things in my head at once in order to do that, and I don't have the computing power. I can do all of those things in isolation perfectly well, but putting them together proves a real challenge. And it's another reason why I feel I really am unable, mentally, to dance. I mean, to say nothing of the fact that I'm a little bit wary of the base animalistic nature of the impulse to dance, but that's a whole other story we won't get into. Another thing is left from right. Now, as some of you may have noticed, I wear a watch, which is rather abnormal for someone of my generation. We don't generally wear watches anymore, have you noticed? I mean, time's everywhere. It's on computers, it's on the side of buildings, it's on our phones. We don't generally wear watches. And to be fair, the reason I wear a watch is not generally to tell the time. If I take off this watch, immediately now, my ability to tell left from right has dropped by about 80%, and I'm not joking. I would have failed my driving test utterly if I hadn't had a watch on my left hand. So you can imagine what a difficulty it is sometimes when people are talking about stage left and stage right. I'm thinking, is that my left, their right, their left, my right? Also, another thing that brings me on to is timekeeping. A lot of people, when they get up in the morning, have everything rigidly planned out, exactly how long everything takes, with military precision. And I'm no different, but the difference is I have to keep referring to all of the timekeeping devices I have around me. I have 2 clocks in this room, a watch. There are clocks downstairs. And if I don't do that, I don't know how long things take, because I don't really have a perception of how long things take. And this is true for things that I've been doing for years. Like, often I'll go and make a cup of tea, and I'll put on a piece of music that's 5 minutes long, and I'll be up here with the tea and everything before it's finished on some days. And on some days, I'll go and do exactly the same thing, and the track will have finished a long time before I'm back upstairs. I don't know exactly how long, but I have no real perception of how long things take. And as you can imagine, at school and, you know, later when I went out and got a job, this was a real problem for me. At school, before I was diagnosed, I was called lazy. Now, I'm still open to the fact, as much as I might not wish to admit it, that there are some things in my life that I am probably quite lazy about. However, here's the thing. I don't know how it works in other parts of the world, but in this country, if you're diagnosed with a learning difficulty, you can be sometimes statemented to that effect. And if you have a statement, then you are immediately entitled to certain assistance through the education system. And I was diagnosed, but I wasn't statemented. I wasn't deemed a severe enough case, which had its good sides and it had its bad sides. One of the good sides was I got very good at dealing with it, because I wasn't ever guaranteed any support. Must try harder and could do better are phrases that have haunted me my entire academic career. Have you ever had a teacher or someone in your life that's trying to teach you something, and it kind of goes a bit like this? Look, just do this. This is all I'm asking you to do. Do this. No, 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 you're doing it wrong. Do it like this. No, no, you're still doing it wrong. Do it like this. This is not difficult. I find it very hard to understand how you're not getting this. Do it like this. You know, just do it like this. What are you not getting? You just can't be trying hard enough. You know, you're lazy. This is not difficult. You just don't put enough effort in. You don't want to do this enough. You had anyone like that? People are sympathetic to you if you have some sort of physical ailment that they can see. Like, you know, they can see if you've got a broken arm, you're in a wheelchair. They're sympathetic if you have a broken body. They're less sympathetic if you have a broken head, because they can't immediately see that. And I cope. I cope pretty well, but that's all I ever do. To the point where people don't realise, and they take it for granted, that I can do all of these things, and that I am an able... Well, I am an able-bodied person, but I'm not perhaps the best able-brained person, if that makes sense, sometimes. I suppose what all this highlights really is, it's just another example of why we should imagine people complexly, and I would accuse anyone who's ever called me lazy in regards to this of not doing that. Well, anyway, I've whittled on long enough. I hope that was vaguely informative for you. Hopefully you got something out of it. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.